We will now move into the sales category of JobMaster and the customer button. By clicking on the customer button, we are brought to this screen. Here the operator can see a list of all of the customers previously entered into JobMaster. Here a new customer can be entered by clicking on the new button, or a selected customer already in the system can be edited. We have selected customer number 1. Any customer can be selected, as you can see, simply by clicking on it. But we'll highlight number 1 and click on Edit so we can look at how that customer data was entered and all of the customer data that can be entered. Before we do that, you will note that customers can be located by customer ID, simply highlighting the circle by clicking on it and entering the customer ID in this data field, or the customer name, or the customer phone number. Customers can also be found, of course, by simply using the slider bar to move up and down and finding the customers in this list. However, if you have an extensive customer base, finding the customer by ID, name, or phone number is much more convenient. So we'll now click on the Edit button for customer number 1. The reason, by the way, that I'm clicking on the Edit button here for customer number 1 as opposed to entering new customer data is that if I click on New, which I'll do here, as you can see, all the data entry screens are blank. And I'm going to click on Edit for a customer that's already filled out so we can see an example of a completed customer data entry area. So I'll now click on Edit. It's asking me to select a record, which I will do here. I'll now click on Edit, and we come to this customer screen. As you can see from this screen, customer data can be entered by customer name and customer ID number. There are 4 tabs along the top: Main, which is the main customer information, Billing and Financial, Other Contacts, and Shipping Locations. In the main screen, there are also buttons for Quote History, Order History, Printing of the customer record, Printing of a mailing label, and there are multiple data entry areas which can be customized for each customer. So specialized notes for this customer can be entered here under Main Notes. Technical notes, which will appear on the work order or shop traveler, can be entered here. And here, custom data fields can be created for any particular customer or for customers overall. So JobMaster gives operators a great deal of flexibility in entering information. Before we move to the Billing and Financial tab, where more information can be entered under a customer record, I'd like to mention in particular the Quote History button and the Order History button here on the main customer screen. An operator, a salesperson, or management, simply by clicking on the Quote History button, can generate a report of all of the quotes that have been created for this customer since they were entered in the system. In the same fashion, simply by clicking on the Order History button, a report can be generated of all the orders that this customer has actually placed. This can be a very effective and quick means to discover the value of this customer, if they actually place a lot of orders or if they continually ask for quotes and don't place many orders. For sales and for management, this can be a very powerful tool. By clicking on the Billing and Financial tab here, we can see the next data entry area for customer information. As you can see, not only do we have contact information for the people controlling the finances within that company, but the terms of this customer, their credit limit, if any, their resale number and other relevant information, and 2 important things here. These boxes can be checked if this customer is on hold or if they are on COD. And what happens if these boxes are checked is that when product is ready to be shipped, the shipping area of JobMaster will flag the order that it's on hold or it's on a COD basis. Also, if a sales order is placed which exceeds the credit limit for that customer, JobMaster will flag the salesperson. In this area too, as you will see throughout JobMaster, there are data areas where individualized notes and other data can be entered for this particular customer. You will also notice here that allows the person entering this customer data to put in the sales rep ID number if there's a sales rep involved for this customer and the customer orders are commissionable. We'll now click on the Other Contacts button. As you can see, JobMaster allows for the entry of multiple contacts for each individual customer. The type of contact, which can be technical, shipping, financial, or whatever, the name, title, phone, fax, email, comments. So it covers the full range of information that needs to be added for each individual contact within a customer record, and there are no limits as to the number of additional contacts that can be entered for each customer in JobMaster. And as you can see here, JobMaster allows for the entry of multiple shipping locations. All of the data can be entered here, the means or the shipper which is to be used, the account number of the shipper. You have multiple options for shipping, option 1, option 2, option 3. You can indicate whether this account is taxable or not taxable. And when you click on a location, a shipping location, I will click now on the machine shop, you can see the information over here changes. I'll click back on main offices. So multiple shipping locations can be entered, and when the time comes to ship, the shipping department of the company using JobMaster can simply pick the location, the customer location, to which the product is going to go. I will now click Cancel, and we will close this area and move on to the quotation area of JobMaster. Clicking on the quotation button allows an operator to prepare a detailed quote for a customer, which can be turned into a sales order with a simple mouse click. Clicking on the quotation button brings us to this screen. List of quotations. Before we go into an actual quotation, there are a number of items on this screen I'd like to address briefly. If a salesperson or operator of JobMaster or management wishes to find a particular quote, there's a variety of ways to do so. One way is to use the slider bar and simply go up and down and find the quotes that are in the system. A quote can be found by clicking in this circle and typing in the quote ID here, or clicking in this circle and typing in the customer ID here. If the list in this area is to show all quotes, this button is clicked, and this area here shows all quotes that have been produced by JobMaster. Clicking on this button shows only the open quotes that have been produced by JobMaster, which is very handy for salespeople and management, because it gives a list of all the quotes that have been given out but have not been closed or turned into sales orders. And this button will print all the open quotes. Moving down to the lower screen, we see a variety of buttons at the bottom of the screen: New, Edit, Revise, Reproduce, and so on. The New button is clicked on by an operator to create a new quote for a customer. The Edit button is used to edit a selected quote. The Revise button and the Reproduce button are quite important and can save an operator or a salesperson a lot of time. First, the Revise button. There are two ways to revise a quote. One is to simply select the quote to be revised, as we have done here by selecting number 1. Click on the Edit button, edit the quote, and save it. It will then copy over the original quote. No record of the revision will be kept. However, in many cases, the operator or salesperson will want to keep the original quote and the revision. In such a case, the quote is selected and then the Revise button is clicked on. This allows the operator or salesperson to create a revision and then save it as an extension of the original quote. For example, the original quote in this case would be number 1, and the first revision would be 1-1. The second revision would be 1-2, and so on. Now, the Reproduce button. The Reproduce button can be a real time saver for a salesperson who's using JobMaster. Let's say, for example, that a customer has asked for a quote on a very involved product, and later on another customer asked for a quote on a product which is very similar. The Reproduce button allows a salesperson to simply select the original quote, click on the Reproduce button, and produce an exact copy of the original quote, into which the new customer's name can be inserted and any modifications for that new customer can be added. This can be an enormous time saver for very involved quotes. We will now go to the Edit button. We have selected quote number 1. We'll go to the Edit button and take a look at what's involved in actually creating a quote. The reason, again, I won't go to the New button is we would have to enter all data from the get-go, whereas by selecting an existing quote and using the Edit button, we can look at data that has already been edited and created into a quote. Before we do that, however, the New button does illustrate a couple of features of JobMaster that are worth mentioning. I will click on the New button, which brings us to a data entry area for a new quote for a customer. If the customer for whom the quotation is to be developed is a brand new customer, in other words, they have not been entered into JobMaster as yet, all the operator needs to do is click on New Customer, and the operator will be taken to the customer data entry area where they can enter all the information for the new customer. If this is an existing customer, all the operator needs to do is click on this down arrow by the customer ID data area, select the customer, in this case we'll pick 112, or 1012 rather, and all the customer data that has previously been entered drops into all the proper areas here in the quotation form. And this illustrates one of JobMaster's features, which is when data is entered into JobMaster, you only have to enter it once and it becomes available throughout JobMaster in every part of JobMaster. I will now click on OK, and we'll go back to the list of quotations area and click on the Edit button for quote number 1. Clicking on the Edit button brings us to the already entered information for quote number 1, which is the quote we selected. This screen would allow you to modify the quote that already had been created, but will allow us to look at a quote that's already been filled out so we can examine how it was done and the way that JobMaster works in the quotation area. As you can see, the basic information is here at the top, customer ID, the quote number, and so forth, along with the revision number. If this was a revision, then the revision number would show up here. There's various information tabs here, customer address, rep, shipping, customer reference, and quote amount here, and we'll be going into these tabs in just a moment. The first one is the customer address area. As you can see, the customer billing information is contained here on the left-hand side of the screen, and the shipping information, where this product is to be sent to, is listed here. Down below is a listing of all the line items that are on this quote, and in a few minutes we'll look at a line item and see how the costs were developed. By clicking on the Rep, Shipping, and Customer Reference tab, we see the rep ID and the sales rep, their commission percentage, which can be changed by someone with the right management password if this percentage does not apply to this one particular job, shows the terms, any specialized quotation notes, any billing notes, any shipping notes, and if this customer had been entered as being on hold or COD, that would show up here for the salesperson's reference, and it can show up on the quote itself. Clicking on the quote dollar amount tab is a summation of the quote, the grand total of the quote, whether there's a discount, which can be entered on an amount or percentage basis, whether or not there's sales tax, and so forth. So the financial and discount information is all contained on this screen. We'll go back and click on the customer address screen, which gives us again the basic customer data and shipping information. And we will now go into the actual line item information on this quote and how it was developed. As you can see, there are 3 line items here, 102, 104, and 106. 102 has had the pricing worked out. As you can see, there's a price here. So we're going to go ahead and select this line item and take a look at how the pricing was developed. I highlighted the line item, and now I'm going to click on the Cost Breakdown button. This takes us to the Detail Cost Breakdown screen, from which I can illustrate exactly how the pricing for a line item is developed on an item-by-item basis. This is the internal worksheet area, if you will, for developing a quote or a price on an individual line item on a quote. As you can see from the buttons here, this detail cost breakdown can be printed for review by salespeople or management, but of course the customer does not see this. It lists the quote number, the part number or the line item that's being quoted, and the quantity, and a box that can be checked as to whether or not this particular item is taxable. So this quote line item is being developed for part 102, which is one of the line items on the quote. And as you can see, there's an area for figuring labor, for materials, and for other costs. And as you recall from a bit earlier in this presentation, we built drop-down menus of labor costs, which you can access by simply clicking on the down arrow. Of materials, again, the down arrow lists all the materials in inventory. and other costs. So if the Part 102 requires a variety of labor items to be added to it to figure the costs, you simply list those items here. To add a new labor cost, you simply click on New Labor. Opens up this data area here. You click on the down arrow, select in this case etching. There's the rate that was previously entered. Put in the number of hours required, let's say 2. And by pressing the tab, JobMaster automatically figures the total over here. The same works for materials and other costs. You can simply click on New Material, New Other, and select from the drop-down menu whatever additional items should be factored into the costs for this particular Part 102 on this particular line item of the quote itself. Once the charges have been figured here for this particular line item, part number 102, each of these cost areas can be marked up by either a dollar amount, a numerical amount, or a percentage, simply by selecting the area and putting in the percentage or dollar amount of the markup. This is true for labor, materials, and costs. So this gives two ways to mark up the price of the product, by either a set dollar amount or a fixed dollar amount in each area, or by a percentage. So once all of this is completed, the operator simply clicks on OK, and the price of that particular line item here is added onto the quote itself. The 3 buttons here allow the operator to add a new line item and use the cost breakdown that we just examined to build the cost for it, to edit an existing line, or to delete a line item that's already been set up in the quote. To transform the quote into a sales order is literally a point-and-click procedure with this button. But before we go into that, I'd like to discuss briefly this button titled Letter. Clicking on the Letter button takes us to the JobMaster Quote Letter area. This is a unique feature of JobMaster which allows management to create canned or pre-written openings, letter openings, paragraphs on delivery, notes, closing statements, and even to add electronic signatures and save them in JobMaster's memory. When a letter needs to be created to go with a quote, then the operator of JobMaster or the salesperson can simply select the pre-created paragraphs on a point-and-click basis, and they will automatically drop into a letter addressed to the client for whom the quote is being prepared. The simple procedures to use this feature can be found in JobMaster's manual, which comes with the program, or in JobMaster's help area online at JobMaster's website. I will click on Cancel, which will take us back to the Modify Quote screen and our discussion of turning the quote into a sales order. When a quote is completed and a customer has approved part or all of it, turning a quote into a sales order is simply a matter of one click on the Sales Order button. By clicking on the Sales Order button, which I will do now, we are brought to this screen which says Quote to Sales Order. Here's the quote, it's revision 0, and here are all the line items on the quote. If the customer wishes to buy all of the line items on the quote, the operator can simply click on Select All, and all of the items, the line items listed on the quote, will drop into this box which says Items Selected for Sales Order. If the customer only wants, for example, one line item of the quote on the sales order, they only wish to purchase one of the line items, the operator can simply click on the line item of the quote the customer wishes to buy, click on Select, and that line item drops into the box Items Selected for Sales Order. The operator then can click on Create Sales Order. It says, do you want to view the sales order which has now been created? We'll say yes. And here's a note from JobMaster which gives you an idea how the flags work. It says the total order, total amount, exceeds the customer's credit limit. We had preset a credit limit for this customer, and since this order exceeds that limit, the salesperson or the operator of JobMaster has now been notified. I will click on OK to tell the program that I have seen the notice and will take whatever action is required. And we now have been taken to the sales order screen. The quote has been created into the sales order with the one line item that we selected, and it has asked us to enter the purchase order from the customer for this sales order. I will click on OK. The cursor defaults to the purchase order number, which, if I have it, I can enter. And we are ready to go. We can print the sales order for sending to the customer, or simply close out of this area of JobMaster to create the work order and Shop Traveler to actually produce this item. And when I click on OK, the sales order is entered into the system, and the system will know that a work order or Shop Traveler has to be created to now produce this item on the sales order, which a customer has now approved. I will click on OK, and we will close out of the quotation area. And we are now back to the main screen where we will look at sales orders. A simple click on the sales order button takes us to this screen, which is titled List of Sales Orders. And there's a variety of features here which I'd like to discuss. This area of JobMaster illustrates again one of JobMaster's main features, which is operators are not required to perform functions in a preset manner. In short, you do not have to create a quote in order to create a sales order. If an operator so desires, or a salesperson so desires, they can go directly to a sales order without first having to create a quote. This is of real value when a customer may be reordering a product or simply sending in a PO for a product that's been created for them previously. In such a case, there's no need to create a quote, and JobMaster allows an operator to go directly to a sales order. There's a variety of other features that can be accessed from this particular location. As you can see here on the right-hand side, there are buttons: Quote List, All Revisions, Current Revisions, Print Open Orders, and Job Backlog Report. By clicking on the quote list, an operator here can move directly to a list of open quotes in case they need to create a sales order from the sales order area from a quote that's already been created. Clicking on All Revisions will show all revisions to any sales orders, because this area allows sales orders to be revised as well as edited. Clicking on this button will show just the current revisions to sales orders, not all revisions, including revisions to sales orders that have been closed. Printing open orders allows the operator here to print all the orders, sales orders, that are open and have not been closed because production on them has not been completed. The Job Backlog Report is a very important report. Simply clicking on this Job Backlog Report button will produce a report of all jobs that are in production and are not completed, or all jobs that have been completed and not totally shipped, and the value of those jobs on a job-by-job basis and in total. This is an enormously valuable management tool for being able to tell with a mouse click how much work is hung up in production and the value of that work. This area here, Projected Commission Report, is another very valuable management tool. What this allows management to do is to type in a start date and an end date and click on Projected Commission Report. And what will be produced is a report showing all commissions which will be due for the jobs that are scheduled to be completed between these two dates. And it gives management a powerful tool to see what commissions will need to be paid out if all these jobs are produced on time and in full. As you can see from the balance of the screen, many of the features that we just discussed in the quotation area are also in the sales order area. And sales orders can be located either by using the slider bar, after selecting if it's all revisions, current revisions, or open orders, and so on, or by entering in the order ID or the customer ID. Let's go ahead and select a sales order here. I'll pick number 2, and we'll click on Edit so we can take a look at how the sales order is created, and you'll find that it's created much in the same fashion as a quotation. Before we do that, however, let me click on the New button here to illustrate how a sales order can be created without first creating a quote. When we click on the New button, we're taken to the New Sales Order screen, where we can simply select the customer we're creating this new sales order for by clicking on the down arrow next to the customer ID area, picking the customer. Their information all drops in here, and then we can create new line items on the sales order by clicking on new line item and developing the cost breakdown from the cost breakdown worksheet that is exactly like in the quotation area. So as you can see, a sales order can be created without having to go through the quote process. I will now click on cancel, and we will move back to taking a look at an existing sales order and what can be done from the edit area. Clicking on the edit button takes us to the modify sales order screen for an existing sales order. And as you can see, it looks much like the quotation screen. Customer address, terms, shipping, rep, and so forth, and the sales order amount. Below here, we can add a new line item if we want to on an existing sales order. We can edit a line item. We can delete a line item. And we can go to a cost breakdown worksheet for developing line items or modifying them that looks exactly like the one in the quotation area. You also will see that there's a View Quote button here. And by clicking on this, if this sales order was developed from a quote, using the procedure that we reviewed in the quotation area by clicking on a button, you can click here on the View Quote button and see the original quote from which the sales order was created. There's the quote, and it's highlighted. And by closing out of here, it takes us back to the sales order we're working on. So this is a very fast, easy, and convenient way to edit an existing sales order that has been created from a quote, or to create a new sales order without using a quote. I'll click on Cancel to move us out of this screen. We're now back to the main sales order screen, and I will click on Close, and we will now move to the next area of JobMaster. You have noticed, I'm sure, as we've moved through this demonstration and training presentation, that I've mentioned a variety of individual reports and such things as printouts of the sales orders and quotations and so on that I have not brought up on the screen. Again, as was mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, if you are viewing this presentation from our CD, there is a reports file on the CD in a Word document format, which we recommend very strongly that you print out and examine. In this report is a printout or printouts of all the individual main reports of JobMaster, including quotations, sales orders, shop travelers, and a variety of other reports you'll want to examine in detail. If you have downloaded this presentation from our website, there's a reports file on our website at the same location where you downloaded this demonstration, and you can download the reports file from there as well, and we would recommend very strongly that you do so.